What's up, people? How are you? I hope everything is fine. Wednesday, equator of the working week. Just 2 more days and we'll be free again, right? My name is Pepe Cuenca. I am a Spanish Grandmaster and I welcome you to the game of the day of round number 5 of the Grand Prix series in Sharjah in the Emirates. Before I start, I wanted to share with you some news that I was reading before I started to record this video. And I was just reading some Spanish, some regional Spanish newspaper, and the news said some Spanish guy goes to party with a pony, with a small horse. And he decides to park the pony in a roundabout so he can go and get some drinks. So imagine you just go out and then with your pony, and then you just park the pony and then you get some drinks, some Cuba Libre, some beers, and you just go back and then go home. To get some sleep. So I don't know if this is normal in your countries. I think just with Spanish we're just getting crazy. But anyway, let's just focus on the chess. We have some high quality game today. I'm gonna show you the game between Mickey Adams and Hammer, the second Norwegian player after Magnus Carlsen, and Mickey Adams, one of the chess legends, still playing in top tournaments with 40 something years, and he's been there for 20 years or so. As I'm telling you, this game, it has been extremely high quality game. It's been a massage, so you will see what I'm telling you. I don't wanna give you the result, so you will find out later. So yeah, let's just go with it and start seeing what happened in the 64 squares. So Mickey Adams decides to play e4. Hammer replies with e5, one of the most used defenses in the top tournaments. Knight f3, knight c6, and bishop c4. And we are in the Italian opening. As you know, after bishop b5, we are in the Ruy Lopez in the Spanish opening, where actually black normally in top tournaments, most of players are playing knight f6, the Berlin defense, or a6. Both of them extremely solid. And bishop c4, the Italian opening, it was really trendy like a couple of 100 years ago, but it's becoming again really it's being played a lot again in these years in order to avoid all these Berlin walls. So of course white just developed a minor piece preparing for castling, and then this bishop is actually placed in the best diagonal, I would say, just targeting the weakest point of black, f7. So bishop c5, and here at this point Mickey went for short castle. So let's just show a little bit of theory. So c3 used to be the most played move in this position. After knight f6, d4, e takes d4, c takes e4. This has been played in many games, but after bishop b4, it turns out that black is okay. So white can play knight c3 or bishop d2. There is a non-repetition after bishop takes, knight takes, and d5. But if you are playing with black and you wanna play for a win, I recommend you to play here knight e4. So at this point, so white normally takes on b4, and now bishop takes f7. This beautiful move, given the fact that you can go queen b3, d5, and this knight is gonna fall. So let's say knight e5, king e6, queen takes b4, and then here Aronian found a really nice move, queen f8, forcing white to trade queen since f2 is attacked. So you have to take here, and this endgame is considered to be pretty good for black. So no problems for black at all. So these days, after bishop c5, short castling is becoming very trendy. Of course, it's a really natural move, right? Just putting your king in a safe place. Knight f6, targeting the e4 pawn. So d3, you just defend it. And at this point, d6 or short castles are the most played move. But at this point, Hammer played a6. But anyway, you can transpose to these lines, because later black is gonna play just d6 or short castle. So basically, this can transpose to the lines that I was talking before. So c3 was played, and now d6 and a4 was played. a4 is actually has a double purpose. First, you wanna expand your pawns on the queen side, and then this knight can develop via a3. not only exists this development via d2, but also this knight a3. It's interesting because you can go to c2 and later to e3. And e3 is a really interesting square since you control two very important squares, the d5 and f5 squares. So Mickey played a4. I have to tell you that bishop b3 is also one of the main lines. I think this is called the gioco pianissimo, so Italian word. Basically, bishop a7 is also played here. And just for those who are interested in these types of positions, I'm gonna tell you something. So you should play h3 very, very carefully. Mostly when this king is not castled yet, because after h6, for example, if white continues normally, let's say knight bd2 or rook e1, you can play with g5 very aggressively. I also was lucky to be able to play this g5 move in some of my Bundesliga games 2 years ago, and I won a nice game. There is also a game between Mickey Adams and Shirov, where actually I think it was after rook e1, g5, knight h2, black could also go g4, because later on you can follow with rook g8, and then white can never play f3 since there is a really strong monster in this diagonal. So just for those who are interested in these types of position, just try to investigate this h6 against h3, because if you have not castled yet, you can play g5 and try to kill your opponent in few moves. Okay, but after d6, a4 was played, so short castles and rook e1. And at this point, the most natural move is bishop a7 is the main line. And one could ask me, Pepe, why cannot I go knight to g4, just aiming to go and attack the f2 pawn? Well, after rook e2, then the next move is gonna be h3, and then you just have to go back to f6, right? So doesn't make any sense. But at this point, according to my database at least, Hammer played a novelty, king h8, that has a double purpose. The first one is actually in these types of positions, knight g8 is not that stupid, because you want to go f5, so you just free this square for this beautiful corcel. And then the second move, the second purpose, is that actually if you continue normally, let's say by playing knight bd2, now knight g4 is actually a really interesting move, because after rook e2 you can play f5. And the difference is, after h3, you can retreat your knight to h6 or f6, but you have managed to open the position with f5. And you can create some sort of attack against the white skin. So this is the purpose of king h8, which is a very interesting move by Hammer. And after this, in a prophylactic way, Mickey Adams played, sorry, h4, no, this is too smart. So he went and played h3, controlling the g4 square. And h6 was played by Hammer. So we have to say that, for example, after knight g8, now just white can react in the center, d4 and bishop a7. And after bishop e3, it's not that easy to strike in the center with f5. Let's just show this as an example line. Takes, boom, boom. And after d takes, queen takes d8, rook takes, and knight a3, and this pawn is gonna suffer a lot, right? You are just gonna bring your rook to e1, and black is gonna have a lot of troubles to defend this guy on a5, right? So after h3, h6 was played, has a double purpose as well. It controls the g5 square and also gives some pressure to black skin, right? And now knight a3, and at this point, Hammer played a move and an idea that I hadn't seen before, and it's actually really interesting, because normally I was used to see these positions with the bishop on a7 already, but he plays bishop takes a3, and one could think, what is this guy doing? He's just giving the bishop pair for nothing? Well, the idea is that since this bishop is on c4 and not on b3, now bishop e6, and black is managing to exchange this bishop, and therefore eliminating the white's bishop pair. So if the bishop were on b3, bishop takes a3 would be maybe a really bad move, because after bishop e6 you could retreat your bishop to c2, keeping the bishop pair, and then this would be really nice for white. But now, since you managed to exchange light square's bishop, then I think this is very reasonable, and I find this idea by Hammer really interesting. So rook takes a3, bishop e6 takes, f takes e6, and now d4. winning some space in the center. So white's idea is to take on e5, and so it will give black a really bad pawn structure, right? So the question is why black shouldn't take now on d4. Well, now black has solved all the problems related to the structure, but then you have given white an extra option of putting some pressure, and this is the c file. This rook can come to c3 now and put some extra pressure on the c file, right, on Carlitos. And Carlitos, I don't want him to suffer, so that's why I think with good criteria, Hammer didn't take on d4, and he played queen e8. That also has another purpose of bringing the queen to the king side, where actually black could try to create some sort of attack related with bringing the knight to h5, the queen to g6, etc, etc. White takes on e5, d takes e5, knight takes, d takes e5, and we'll reach this position where actually, if we stop and think a little bit, only white can have a slight edge, right? Because in all the endgames without the heavy pieces, the bishop will be much better than the knight, because since we have pawns on both flanks, and also there's weakness, there is this weakness on e5 that could be attacked. It's not trivial how this weakness is gonna be attacked, but from this point we start the British massage. You know, it's so amazing. I think it's so amazing the way Mickey outplayed Hammer from this point, and I think I mean, I really enjoy these types of games where you are with your screwdriver putting some pressure in your shoulders opponent, in your ass opponent, step by step, until he cracks. And you're gonna see how this happens in this game. So first, Adams plays a5, just fixing the structure here, so black can never play b6, because after a takes b6, c takes b6, this queen can come to d6, targeting too many weaknesses. So Hammer played rook d8, queen e2 was played, and queen c6. And when I was analyzing on the board this position before I recorded this video, and I thought, okay, how am I gonna develop this bishop? Because d2 is not an ideal square. Of course, the ideal square is e3, but e4 is actually very weak. And I don't want to play f3, because this weakens a lot the dark squares, right? g3, f4, after some knight h5, we could end up having some troubles, right? But at this point, Mickey employs a really nice maneuver in order to bring this bishop to e3 and not weakening this diagonal by playing f3. So he plays rook b3, also making this queen putting an eye on the b7 pawn all the time, so it's not that free. And after rook d7, rook b4. And now he's gonna continue with bishop e3, because after rook fd8, bishop e3, this pawn is actually poisoned, since there is boom, bishop takes a6, g takes h6, sorry, wake up, learn how to pronounce, Pepe. So now rook takes rook takes e4, and this king, it's really naked, right? It's having a lot of troubles. e5 is so weak. We are gonna start collecting all the pawns on the e file and giving some checkmate later. So he cannot take on e4, and he improved his king situation by playing king g8 and now queen c4, and we reach this endgame after rook d1, takes, king h2, queen takes c4, and rook takes c4. Black plays c6. So how to attack only black weakness, the e5 pawn, and you are gonna see an extremely beautiful maneuver by bringing the bishop on a7 and later to b8, and this is gonna tight all black's pieces in a really awkward way. So first, white plays rook b4, so forcing this rook to come back to d7, putting this rook in a passive position again. So, and now Mickey decides to bring the king to a more active position. This is a really nice idea, because if you want to start straight away by playing bishop b8, let's say, sorry, bishop a7 in order to go bishop b8, king f7, bishop b8, then black could activate his rook by playing rook d2, and then the f2 pawn is unprotected. So first, he decides to bring the king to the center and then play this bishop a7 maneuver. So king g3, king f7, king f3, and g5. G5 is actually a really risky move because it gives white another breaking point on h4, right? So when I was analyzing this game again on my board, on my plastic beautiful board, then I was asking myself, okay, what happens if black just stays calm and then just play passive moves like king e8, king f7, or knight g8, knight e7. So let's just try to show how white can improve the position. You can play c4, knight e7, king e2, king e8, h4, just aiming to fix black's pawn structure in the king side, g3, step by step, h5, f3, g4, and rook b3. Now this rook joins the party via a1, maybe to the g file, but also you can play c5 and then this beautiful maneuver by bringing this bishop to c3 and putting a lot of pressure. So it's clear that black has to do something. What I mean is the white's position can be improved step by step, and at the end this weakness is gonna suffer a lot. So if this pawn were on f7, then black would be more or less okay. But okay, let's continue. Sorry, this was here. h4 was played. Sorry, bishop a7. And now, of course, the next move is bishop b8. You're gonna play rook d8 since the b7 pawn is attacked. So black actually has to manage to bring this king to f6 in the next move, otherwise this pawn on e5 is gonna fall. That's why black plays knight g8, aiming to regroup this knight via e7, where you can try to go to some more active squares. But now h4 was played, and black cannot play g4 since the knight is not on f6. So actually, black is forced to take on h4. Otherwise, you will give white an extra option of bringing this rook to the h5, and also this pawn on g5 can be attacked as well. So after g takes h4, king g4 was played, knight e7, and another fantastic move by Mickey Adams. So what could think? Okay, king takes h4 looks like a really natural. What just recapture the pawn, and I'm really happy, right? But now after knight g6, king g3, you have led this knight to come to a really active position, and now black is more or less okay. But after knight e7, Mickey played bishop e3, controlling this f4 square, also targeting the h6 pawn, and then in the next move you'll capture this h4 pawn. So bishop e3, really precise move by Mickey Adams. So knight g8 was played, defending the h6 pawn, and now give me your pawns, baby. I'm so hungry. I just want to take your pawn, and then this, and then this, and then boom, boom, boom. King e8 was played, and rook b3. Now Mickey decides that after c4, this rook can come to d3 in case this rook wanna activate by coming to f7 or g7, and also after rook a3, this rook can always join the party, right? So rook g7 was played, and g4, fixing this pawn on h6, rook f7, and c4. Now white's threat is also to occupy the d file, right? Because after rook d7, if you exchange the rooks, after king h5, this pawn on h6 is gonna fall. So basically, black is so tight here, so he cannot move the knight because h6 is attacked, and he has to stop this rook coming to d3. That's why rook d7 was played, and now bishop a7, and again, an extremely beautiful maneuver, because now this bishop is gonna come to b8 again, putting some pressure on the e5 pawn. And the thing is, this king is not enough now to protect this e5 pawn, since there is some rook f3 check now. So that's why the only way to defend this pawn on e5 is by playing knight f6, first putting some pressure on the e4, but after f3 all pawns are well defended from white, and you see that f3 is well defended by this rook on b3, and black cannot penetrate by playing rook d4 because this bishop covers this square. So the only way to defend the e5 pawn is to bring a knight to d7, right? That's why rook f7 was played, and after bishop d8, knight d7, bishop d6, you see like how much pressure there is on this position. So now this knight is cannot come to c5, cannot move because the e5 pawn is attacked. So after bishop d6, black played king d8, and you cannot take the pawn on b7 since the f3 pawn is more important. So white played king h5, attacking the h6 pawn, and after rook f6, rook d3 was played. Now you want to take this pawn on e5, forcing this king to go to e8, and now the last beautiful maneuver. So bishop b5, bishop b4. You saw how this bishop was dancing during the whole game. Some salsa via a7, then some tango via b4, because now you want to go to d2, and then actually black is not on time to defend the h6 pawn. In this king has also to put an eye on the d7 knight, right? So c5, bishop d2, the h6 pawn is gonna fall, knight f6, king g6, knight g8, and after bishop g5, black actually had to resign, because the bishop controls the knight on g8, and also is threatening just checkmating one move on d8. And after, let's say, knight e7, you just can take on e7. If king takes, rook d7, and then takes this rook on f7, and if rook takes e7, you can just play g5, and this is gonna be a queen very soon. King f6, you start collecting all the guys here, and you are more than happy. So I think this has been a really fantastic game from Mickey Adams. A lot of quality involved in this game. So I personally enjoy a lot these types of games, where not only sacrifices are so exciting, but also putting pressure step by step with a screwdriver. I find it really interesting. So let's just show the standings after round number 5. As you can see here, MBL is leading with 3.5, Mamediarov, both of them. Then a bunch of players with 3 out of 5. Nakamura, Mickey Adams, Grishuk, all of them with +1. Then a bunch of players with 50%, among them my compatriot Paco Vallejo. And in the bottom of the tournament, we got Salem and Tomaszewski. So I hope you guys enjoyed this game. I did it as well, analyzing. So tomorrow there's a rest day, but for sure I will have some shows on Chess24. I'll be doing some Banter Blitz as well in Spanish and English. So I wait you there to try to kick my ass. So just have a nice evening. Take care. Bye bye. Bye bye. Ay, 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 ay.